Meditation is our mental gym. It is the space in which we get to practice how to cultivate a mind that is more resilient, more patient, more compassionate, or whatever quality of mind you want to kind of cultivate. Because the reality is, something's being created every day. Most of what's being created is probably not helpful for you or for the people around you. Because if you're just taking what we get from the world, well, that's not really helpful for you or anyone else for that matter. There are good things out there, no doubt. But if you just take in what is fed to you, if you don't or you aren't intentional, then yeah, most of what you're going to get is rage and anger and frustration and doom and gloom, not because it's true, but because it sells. Because you're a creature who is designed to look for the worst possible scenarios as a means of evolutionary survival. And so those qualities have now been hijacked. So if you're only taking what you get from the world, you're probably going to be pretty stressed out and not feeling great. And so meditation for me has always been a space where I come to work out my mind and figure out my problems and situations and conditions so that I can give myself a different input other than just what is being served up to me because I know how the recipe is made. I know how to put the ingredients together. Now, other language words for what I'm describing is there's a condition, a conditioning that's been happening to us since I don't know we were born, and it's not just us. It happens to any animal you're trying to kind of learn and train to be and behave a certain way. The thing about this pattern behaviors that we pick up is when we pick them up early enough, we won't question them. They'll just kind of stay with us until they're no longer useful or until it's pointed out to us that they're no longer useful. 9 times out of 10, you probably won't even notice it, hence why it's called conditioning, aka habit forming. It bypasses kind of the rational thinking mind so that we can be more efficient beings. And there's a story that comes out of, I don't know, an Indian folklore somewhere in that part of the world, but and it's about how like elephants are trained. So one of the ways that elephants are trained is that when they're young, they're tied up with a chain that's about the equivalent size for a baby elephant. They try to walk away, the chain holds them and binds them. They try again, until they realize like they can't go anywhere. And so, as with most things, they kind of just fall in line and they stay where they are. And then they become the giant, beautiful, loving creatures we all know them to be. And they can still be held with that chain. Because their conditioning is as such that they won't try to break away. Because all they know is that every time they've tried before, it doesn't work. And that's not too uncommon for you and I. Well, I tried that once, it doesn't work. I tried that once, it doesn't. How many times have you heard that? Like there's a relegation that happens because the result didn't happen the last time I tried. Instead of doing what's right and kind of working towards what you're trying to get and giving the space and opportunity for it to arise, we simply fall back to our conditioning and we relegate until something painful enough arises. And then we consider or relook. So, here is what I ask you to consider. What if you just chose to look at your conditioning, to question it, to maybe, just maybe, open yourself up to a new possibility that's different than what you're familiar with? What lies on the other side of that for you? I don't know. Give it a try. Good luck. Let me know. Until then, be well. Thank you for your time. My name is Dominic, and we will go ahead and begin practice. So if you, again, check your posture, make sure you're seated nice and upright, or at least comfortably enough so that you could take a breath in and then test that by taking a breath in, taking a breath out, maybe letting the shoulders drop down a little bit, letting the hands soften and put them somewhere where they're going to be comfortable and not fidgeting or taking away from your experience. Then I invite you to kind of close the eyes if it feels safe. If it doesn't feel safe to close the eyes, kind of set your vision on a non moving object so that you can minimize the visual distractions. And this is how we set the physical conditions for practice. And this practice, what we're doing, what I like to call it, I heard this in a podcast this week, that meditation is it's like going to the gym for your mind. It's mental training. Like you're learning to sit and observe and become familiar with the power of observation so that you have another tool in your toolkit. Because a lot of time we are either um, resisting what's happening, or we are kind of finding ourselves in these situations where we are resisting it, or we are persisting or reacting to it. And so meditation gives us the space to kind of learn that there's a third way, which is to observe it, and to do so with an attitude that's a little less judgmental than we're probably used to, because it's easy throughout the day to be judgmental. So when you come into this practice, whatever comes up today, give yourself a bit of grace, compassion, and patience with it, because we're here to learn. And we're here to learn ourselves a little bit. And there's lots to see, lots to notice. And the first thing I want you to see or notice is to bring your attention into the breath, specifically exactly where the breath starts. So I want you to notice the initial start point of your in breath. That could be through the nose for a lot of us, or that could be through the mouth if there's any type of airway restrictions to the nostrils. But kind of notice where the inhale breath begins, resting our attention in that space of the beginning of our breath. We see how it sets in motion the next patterns of events. You breathe in, the breath enters the body, it expands. You kind of feel the openness of the breath. And then you breathe out. This dance of a relationship with the environment around you. It's brought to life with each new inhale. This exchange of energy between you and the environment that you're in. The subtle reminder that even though you've gone through the day pretty focused on what was happening to you, that you've always been connected in to the larger picture. And it's easy for our attention to get so narrow to just what's happening with us. So, this subtle reminder that with each breath, you're reconnecting to the space around you, that there's this relationship and reciprocation taking place. Even as you attempt to hold your attention just on the breath, you immediately start to witness that there's more than the breath present in this moment. There are other objects vying for your attention: sounds and smells and sensations of the body, thought patterns and feelings and emotions. There's a whole audience of stuff that can sometimes be waving their hands to pull you and your attention away from simply observing the breath. One way of managing the distractions and the practice is to simply note them for what they are: thinking, hearing, smelling, feeling, and then bringing the attention back to observing the breath. This action of focus, distraction, refocus is the pattern for expanding your compassion, your patience, your willingness to begin again, especially if you're new and especially if it's kind of loud in there. And there is this inherent attitude that we sometimes bring to the practice of needing to get it right, or how many times until XYZ happens. And if you find that pattern of thinking intruding the process, just know that too is something here, at least for now, you try to suspend. It's the gentle act of just being willing to refocus as needed back to the breath. Observing the breath and attempting to hold your focus with it is a nice way to invite a sense of grounding into the practice, especially after a very active day. And yet, I like to invite in an opportunity to expand the landscape of your attention so that it isn't so narrow and it isn't so focused on one thing. And I want to take kind of the attributes that you've used in observing the breath and bring that level of awareness to now what's happening in the physical body. So it isn't as if the breath kind of disappears because you're not solely focused on it. You're simply redirecting your attention now to kind of scan and notice the sensations of the body. And we'll start at the feet. For a lot of us, if we're seated, it's easy to feel kind of the feet connected to the ground beneath us. If you're kind of lying down, you can still feel that same weight of the feet against the surface that's supporting them. And in this scan for sensations, we're simply moving our intention in a way that allows us to see the present sensations that are arising. And in this context, that could be anything from heat, cold, moisture, dryness, pressure, any strain or tension. And then we just kind of like a laser moving its way up, we bring the attention up from the feet into the legs, into the pelvis where it's kind of connected to the surface that's supporting you. Really feel the weight and the sturdiness of your legs beneath you. They've carried you and moved you throughout the day, enabled you, helped you to complete the important tasks of your life, and kind of notice there's a sense of gratitude for the work that they do, that they help you with. Moving the attention from the legs into the torso, you start to sense and feel the way the body is influenced by that breath. So we started feeling the in breath as it came in, but now you feel where it kind of expands till its fullest capacity. And then you can notice that as you breathe out, there's a natural contraction that takes place to kind of help expel the air from the body to make space for the next breath. The physical embodiment of we must let go in order to receive. If you notice as you scan the body, places where sensations feel a little more absent, maybe let your attention linger in those spaces just a little bit longer. Not trying to force anything, but just seeing if given the opportunity, something may arise. Allowing the attention to scan up from the fingertips of the hands through the arms and into the shoulders, feeling both sides of the body, the front and the back, When we start to pay attention to sensations in our body, this is the moment where we start to reveal kind of our likes and our dislikes in our practice. Because we might encounter sensations that aren't comfortable, don't feel well, we don't like, and we might find sensations that we deeply enjoy and would prefer for them to never stop. But can you just observe them without needing either one of those things to necessarily be true? Attention moving now into the neck, into the head, feeling and scanning through the jaw and the face and the ears and the crown of the head, some of the most subtlest parts of ourselves. Notice if there's any contraction or tension being held in the jaw, the natural weight of the head, if it's resting against anything, the surface that's supporting it. And then see if we can kind of release the labels of the individual parts and just kind of drop back into this sensation. So it's more of feeling the body. And then in doing that, you can kind of combine the breath and the sensations of the body. So it's just all sensation. And your attention is this giant spotlight that is free to roam from the crown of your head all the way down to your toes. As we sit with our body and the sensations and the breath that's moving through us, we sit with the conditioning, the stories that appear about what we should and should not be doing, what is right, what we like, what we don't like. And the practice asks you to release those as they arise, to find a bit of what we call equanimity or balance with just observing things as they are in this moment, not an indicator or a story about what they were or what they could be, but simply what they are right now. as we build the skill of observation, all that arises becomes an opportunity to see if we could simply just be with it and learn how it changes, evolves, shifts. What happens when we don't chase after it? Letting your power of observation begin to become more aware of the thought patterns that are happening and arising right now. And now that we have a sense for what we feel in the body, as we bring our attention to simply notice what and how we're thinking in this moment, see if, like following the breath, you can follow and ride the thought all the way from the time it kind of appears into your breath, into your body, and see how closely connected and linked those three are. If there's a certain pace to your thinking, there might be a pace that then corresponds to your breathing and leads to a certain pattern of sensation or feeling. If there's a weight to your thought, they're heavy and kind of dense, how does that feel to your body? How does your breath show up in response to that? These attributes that you're observing and witnessing in your body throughout the course of the day, they're all working together to kind of make up how we describe a moment. And we apply a word or a label that is a much larger set of circumstances taking place. And then choosing to sit and kind of be still and notice all of this, you start to learn how the ingredients come together to make the recipe. And over time, you can start to choose what to put in. a kind note here, a little bit of patience there, a deep sense of gratitude for the smallest thing in this moment. In the last few minutes of practice, simply let your attention relax. Kind of take a moment to kind of step back from the practice, get a sense for where you're at. Don't stop observing and noticing, but just get a general sense for where you are now in the practice. And if there's anything in this moment or from a moment today that you can find a bit of gratitude for, a bit of appreciation for, a reason to be proud of yourself. In keeping with kind of holding your attention, witnessing everything that's arose in practice today. As we begin to close practice, slowly open the eyes, let the rest of the visual world kind of re enter your space and just see how, as everything kind of enters, it feels a bit wider. The sensations expand a little more, the breath expands a little more. And we begin to close out practice.